gamers, gals, non-binary pals, we return to our origins of stealing content, and today we have someone who actually makes good content, and that's Yugioh. Fun fact, I actually met him at the White Shorts / Vanguard Bushy Road World Championships. He did pretty well. I think he got like 3rd place. Shit was insane. So I want to give a watch to his video. Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive and everybody knows it, and I'm not going to pretend that Yu-Gi-Oh is a cheap, affordable, or accessible game for most people, especially considering that they try to cater towards kids and young adults when, you know, I don't think most young adults have $2,000 to $3,000 of disposable income every fucking 3 months. So anyways, let's give it a watch.
Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive and everybody knows it. So there's some new discourse.
No one knows it more than Konami.
Community, and of course a content creator just needs to milk that shit right now. So I wanted to actually talk about it extremely in depth because over the years I have seen these arguments play out over and over again, and I don't understand how people keep getting away with these dog shit arguments. So let's dispel them. Now, first of all, why is this discourse alive again?
Because Bonfire, baby!
Engine, which of course
Wanted Engine!
All of the new
Bonfire! Rollback!
Is expensive as fuck.
Princess!
The poster itself is like $120 a copy right now. Diabellstar herself is like $50 right now. And then of course the straw that broke the camel's back. Yesterday we had the pre-order prices for Bonfire coming up. First they were 70, then 80, then 90. Now some people on TCG Player are even trying to get $120 a copy. And so people are like, holy shit, if I want to play any fire deck coming up, I'm gonna have to pay around $1,000 just for the engine.
When you go to TCG Player, you can actually look at the historical prices of when cards sold. When you look at the historical data for Bonfire selling, this actually was selling for like $130 a copy. Oh my god. We're back down to 80, baby. Unless you literally have an event like the next day and you need to play Bonfire. Just wait. Just wait. It's not that bad. Like, I literally have an event. I have to go to Battle of the Bay in like 3 days. So that's why I bought transaction rollbacks for like $50 a pop. I'm not gonna pretend that that was exactly, you know, a fucking amazing price. I basically got fucking scalped. I won't lie. But like, it makes sense because I play Labyrinth. It doesn't make sense for fire deck players to be playing this because the only good target to search off a Bonfire isn't even fucking legal yet. What is transaction rollback even at? Oh no, oh no. Oh god. Oh god, I got scalped. At least I just traded a bunch of leftover Fenrirs in my binder for it.
Community, and of course a content creator just needs to milk that shit right now. So I wanted to actually talk about it extremely in depth because over the years I have seen these arguments play out over and over again, and I don't understand how people keep getting away with these dog shit arguments. So let's dispel them. Now, first of all, why is this discourse alive again? The reason is that the Wanted engine, which of course is required to play all of the new fire support coming up in Phantom Nightmare, is expensive as fuck. Wanted, the poster itself is like $120 a copy right now. Diabellstar herself is like $50 right now. And then of course the straw that broke the camel's back. Yesterday we had the pre-order prices for Bonfire coming up. First they were 70, then 80, then 90.
Did I just... Oh, I clicked on the wrong fucking one. I'm stupid.
Wanted, the Diabell, the Bonfire,
I'm stupid.
and
No
the
one saw
Populous that still needs to be released. This isn't even including staples and stuff like SP Little Knight. So you count all of that up, any fire deck is going to cost $1,000 at least, just the engine.
It's only $1,000.
You're easily
it's
looking,
only
$1,000.
$1,000.
About $1,500 just to play fire decks.
That's insane. You were 1 second away. I was 1 second away until I realized. $1,000 fucking dollars. Do you know how much that is? That is like $1,500 to play a deck. To like buy a deck from scratch. That's like 1 monthly car payment. That's insurance payment. And that's like groceries for 1 to 2 months. If you're spending like $150 on groceries a week, you could probably buy like, I don't know, 3 grams of cocaine with that. Allegedly.
Why is that an issue? Because the only decks will be fire decks. People aren't
Fire
really
dicks.
wrapping their head around the fact just yet how broken as fuck Diabellstar as an engine is, but once these new Snake Eye cards come out, boy, if you're not playing Fire, you're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
The most insane thing about the Diabellstar engine is that none of it is actually losing you resources. You know what I mean? The fact that the Diabellstar engine literally just does everything. It's an extender that doesn't take up your normal summon. It baits hand traps, so if you already have like Airlifter in hand, it baits like Ash Blossom or Imperm, as well as the fact that it's follow-up in the sense where Wanted draws you a card and OSS can grab you fucking Hydrant or Ponix or Ash on the follow-up turn. It's fucking disgusting.
Fact, however, that about 3 to 6 months after that, of course, they will all get blown to bits by the ban list or power creep and so forth. After which you will be forced to do the exact same dance all over again. We've seen this conversation
Or Rocket Salamander, true!
every single year. First it might be droplets and tactics and prosperity.
I remember I bought a playset of droplets for $400 and that was literally the stupidest fucking decision of my life. I have punted hundreds of thousands of dollars on blackjack and poker, but I don't think there was a dumber decision I could have made than literally spending money on Forbidden Droplet. It was insane.
Venturer Engine and Perler Rhinos and Kashtira and so forth. We keep on going through this. This is how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. The funny thing is, no one actually ever disputes that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is expensive. They just give you reasons why that is totally
And
cool.
they're all bad.
I guess some people just like the finer things in life. Would you like some Chardonnay to wash down that poignant taste of corporate boot? Now let's talk about some bad counter arguments, some good counter arguments, and some potential solutions. Now I know Konami isn't watching this, they're not just gonna listen, but at least I hope that when people talk about this issue in the future, some people will not bring up the shit counter arguments anymore and maybe bring some of the interesting ones to the table and develop them. Bad counter argument number 1. You think these prices are bad? Look at Teledad. That was bad. Sure, those prices sucked, and these prices suck too. If I punch you in the gut, do I get to say, well, I may have punched you in the gut, but imagine if I punched you in the face? No, fuck off. Yeah, Teledad sucked. Necros apparently sucked. I wasn't there, but I believe you. And this sucks too.
Do you know how many people got priced out of the game during Teledad format? A lot of people and a lot of kids. Do you know how many people got priced out of the game during Necros format? A lot of people and a lot of kids. Do you know how many people are getting priced out of the game right now? A lot of people and a lot of fucking kids. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! Will go through like extremely high peaks where just for like 3 to 6 months, it will be the most disgustingly expensive game on planet Earth. The game is just in an almost unplayable spot for people who do not have access to massive amounts of income, for people who want to take the game somewhat competitively seriously, but they literally can't afford to drop $1,500 to $2,000 on it. $2,000! That's a fucking down payment on like a fucking 2009 Toyota Subaru or some shit like that.
One sucky thing does not negate another sucky thing. Counter argument number 2. You should have bought the cards when they were cheaper. Ah, yes. You should have bought a house in 08. Then we wouldn't have a housing crisis right now, right? People
I was 8 years old. I couldn't buy a house.
And therefore, you should have
I was
simply
7,
bought
actually.
them when they were $35 instead of $120. Easy. You see, the issue with this silly retort is that if when Wanted was $35, everyone bought them, they would be $120 back then. This is what happens when inelastic supply meets elastic demand.
This reminds me of the fucking Tombox tweet where fucking Tombox is like, everybody should have just bought Flameburst dragons. You should have just bought them when they were cheap. And everyone was just fucking dunking on him. Like, yeah, you could buy a deck when it's quote unquote cheap or at a more affordable price, but just like how Solemn said, if everybody does that, then it's immediately gonna raise the price. Some people just don't have the upfront capital to make that investment. And what if that investment just turns out to fucking crash? Like, what if Flameburst Dragon, like if you bought it at fucking $3 a copy, what if it just never went up? What if it just stayed at like 50 cents for the rest of its life? What if Wanted Engine just stayed at like $35 to like $10 for the rest of its life? What then?
Was $35 exactly because the people you're talking to back then didn't buy them. Dogshit argument number 3. This is not Konami's fault. It's the seller's fault. They set the prices. Konami doesn't choose single prices.
Oh no.
What this argument ignores is that stores need to make a profit. And
Clown
so
gas.
whatever amount they paid for a case, they will need to make that amount plus some from the singles. This means if Konami prints a certain amount of given cards inside a case and then sets the price of said case, they have indirectly set the floor and ceiling for the prices of the singles. If most of the cards in a set are dog shit, and then there's a couple good cards in there, maybe 1 or 2 potential staples, then those staples will need to carry the value of that entire printed product. This seems to be the case with the current set Maze of Millennia, where we see Bonfire being really good, we see Transaction Rollback being really good, and we see the Thrust reprint being really good. Everything else in that set currently seems to not be that hot, and so all of the value, all of the money that stores pumped into this set has to be extracted from those cards that everyone wants right now. The obvious solution to this is of course that we have to have less sets filled with dog shit that are then juiced by 1 or 2 crucial cards. A great example of this is the legendary Duelists of the Deep. That set should have never been printed, and putting a Forbidden Droplets reprint in there was the most transparent desperation move I have ever seen.
It was crazy. The fact that when I used to work at a card shop, we had so many boxes of Duelists of the Deep that it just got to a point where we would roll customers, like as in we would play dice with customers who just wanted to gamble, and if you won, you got a box of Duelists of the Deep for absolute free. And if you lost, you just gave the store like $20 or some shit like that. The thing that's bad about bad sets is the fact that like the store suffers. It's because not only the player base suffers in the sense where they get a bad set with maybe like 1 good reprint, like wow, I sure got that Forbidden Droplet for like $10 less, but also the fact that stores have to buy some amount of new product in order to keep up with some player demand. But the fact is that these shitty sets are just not even worth ordering at times. So the store is just kind of in like this lose-lose scenario of buy new product that's 90% just gonna be ass and then just like take a huge financial loss, or just struggle to sell a set that barely pays for its own business tax. You know what I mean? I think it was actually cheaper for us to just give away sets and to get some publicity with people coming into the store than it was to actually sell the product and take some sort of like monetary loss due to like sales tax and business tax and credit card fees. You know what I mean?
Next awful argument of course is it's not Konami, it's not the sellers, it's the people paying those prices. They are the ones that ensure Konami keeps getting away with this. This argument comes from people who love Friedrich Hayek but have only read like 1 chapter. While it is true that if every single customer today decided to stop buying Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you would change Konami's policy. But pointing this out as some big gotcha is at best lazy and at worst extremely dishonest. It is unreasonable to assume that millions of players are gonna create some kind of union and stick it to the man. This is like the prisoner's dilemma at a macro
raid their
scale.
headquarters.
At the end
They
of
can't
the
stop
day,
us all.
Card prices are high because supply is kept artificially low. This is something that can mostly be corrected at a supply level. And if the supplier puts the best card at 1 to 3 copies of a $700 case of cards, then
never forget the fucking Kevin Tewart clown gas argument. Answer me this, Reddit. If buying boxes is such a losing proposition, why do you think so many people are opening boxes and selling you the cards? You think the people doing that are just massive idiots? Somebody's a massive idiot, but I don't think it's the person getting rich off of you. Every time I see people proudly proclaim they never buy packs or boxes, then same people complain that single cards are too expensive. I just have to shake my head. Damn, you could really tell this man fucking wiped his shit after sucking the fucking cock of Konami, dude. Like, no shit, we have to spend lots of money on cards. You guys are the reason why card product is so expensive in the first place. Both the stores and the player are in a perpetual lose-lose scenario of the store is fucked on buying super expensive product and the player base is fucked on having to get super expensive resale products.
If you buy the expensive cards, you can actually win tournaments to get price
Win tournaments?
to pay back the cost of those cards. Now we all know know how much price support you get out of Yu-Gi-Oh! So that makes this argument even funnier. But even if a Pokemon player said this to me, I would still be laughing. And their cards are cheaper and their price support is way better. Now, I'm not saying we could copy Pokemon, more on that later, but come on. Let's break it down. The amount of time spent on getting good at a game like Yu-Gi-Oh! The amount of money spent accruing cards throughout that time of getting good. Add to that the travel cost to all of these events throughout that time, compounded by the fact that it is still a game of variance, as all card games are, meaning your revenue isn't even predictable in the slightest. You could literally take a part-time job at Starbucks and out-earn every single Yu-Gi-Oh player on the planet if you
probably combined too.
Cost. And this is nothing against part-time jobs at Starbucks. They are just known to not pay a whole lot. You know what else is known to not pay a whole lot? Yu-Gi-Oh! So get real. If you have to grind your face off to get access to some cardboard, maybe the problem isn't your lack of Sigma Hustle grind set, but actually the price of the cardboard.
When you factor in winning events will simply pay the card back, first of all, you have to actually win a monumental prize card, and most fucking prize cards that are out right now, at best, are going for like 1 to 2,000. And when you consider people are flying across the country, setting up hotels, setting up food, and have to drop like 1 to 2K on their decks in the first place, you realize it barely even covers your fucking hotel and travel costs. And that's assuming you win the fucking event. Overpriced cardboard. Oh no, my investment. It's not investing. It's just fucking gambling that you'll win a tournament. You have literally better odds going to the casino, placing all of that money onto roulette or baccarat, and betting either banker or black, and letting it fucking rip, and getting your money back that way to spend on Yu-Gi-Oh! Than you would be if you travel to every single YCS in an attempt to win the whole thing. Did someone say casino? 1,000 on banker? Mark, come over. We have to gamble.
Next argument. You don't have to play the expensive fire deck. Just buy a cheaper deck. Why? The fire decks are clearly
what
the
if
best
I want to
decks.
play a fire deck?
Expensive cards are clearly the best cards. Isn't the goal of competition measuring who's the best at competing? Shouldn't you want the barrier to entry being as low as possible so that a tournament measures who built and played the best rather than who spent the best? Don't get me wrong, I'm aware that at the highest level everyone has access to everything. So at the end of the day, people winning tournaments are generally the best players because of their skill and not because of their money. If everyone has access to everything, and at that level they do, the difference is still made by their skill. But right now, there is still a artificial barrier to entry, and so you are still reducing the amount of active competitors playing at that highest level.
It'd basically be like if you went to a locals and only like 2 out of like the 32 people who attended that locals had enough disposable income to actually buy like Wanted Fire King or Wanted Rescue Ace. Like, of course those people are gonna be fucking crushing every single player at that locals, because everyone else at that locals is priced out at being able to buy a deck that's actually able to compete at that level. It's crazy.
Are still getting a distorted kind of look as to who can top and who cannot. So again, why should players be forced to pay these ridiculous sums to compete at the highest level? And then their next argument will probably go something like this. In other hobbies, there is also expensive equipment as a barrier to entry, like hockey sticks or golf clubs. The very best ones are also hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually pretty cheap. A lot of this aforementioned equipment often lasts years. Unlike in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Lifetimes,
where your sinful spoil spell could very well be at 0 in a few months.
Shout out to the fucking Susu tweet! And then there are hobbies that are expensive as well. Cars, watches, PC gaming, tabletop gaming. The thing about these is that these are, yes, these are expensive hobbies, or these are expensive things that you could collect at or compete in or whatever. But these are very much upfront costs that actually retain their value forever. It's not going to buy a $20 dumbbell and then the next day that dumbbell is going to depreciate in price because it got a a reprint or something. It's not like your PC is going to immediately become obsolete in like 6 months. I mean, it kind of does, but that's not the point. Like a PC will very much last you 5 to 10 fucking years. Are you telling me that I can buy the Wanted engine and that's gonna last me 10 to 20 years? If I were to buy a bunch of bonfires or pull a lot from cases and sold them online from $20 to $30, would others start selling it for lower? I mean, like, you could. It could actually reach that point, but you'd actually have to keep up a continual supply and demand. You would actually have to hit a point where you're selling so many bonfires that other people would have to follow suit in order to make a significant impact. You know what I mean?
Yu-Gi-Oh cards are made competitively obsolete once every few months on purpose. This is not the case.
I love getting
with
my
those
fucking
hockey
GPU
sticks
banned.
or golf clubs. But more than that, expensive equipment tends to be expensive because of more expensive materials or high-end craftsmanship. This is not the case for Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The difference between a bonfire and a common Kuriboh is virtually nothing except for if foil costs maybe 0.05 cents extra. It is artificial scarcity, and this is very different from expensive equipment for other hobbies like horses or jet skis. Whatever. Expensive cards are a luxury anyway. You're not entitled to them. This is true. And if tomorrow Sony announced that the PlayStation 6 will be $30,000, you would still get to go, gee, that's expensive to an extortionate degree. Someone could then point out that luckily you can still buy cheaper consoles, so the expensive PlayStation 6 is just a luxury.
Do you know what's also a luxury, chat? Food. You don't have to eat at fucking Chipotle or a nice restaurant or to eat meat. You could just eat white rice, salad, and beans for the rest of your life. You could just eat fucking tofu blocks and weird jello if you really want to get your fucking nutrients and calorie count in. It's a luxury to be able to live in this fucking house. It's a luxury to live in your apartment, chat.
And you could then explain to them that those other consoles don't have your favorite games because Sony has a monopoly on these IPs. And better yet, all your friends are also tied to that ecosystem. So giving up being part of said ecosystem isn't just giving up some of your favorite franchises. It is also partially weakening some of these long-lasting friendships you made along the way. But hey, that PlayStation is just a luxury. Now these were the lazy, bad defenses for why Yu-Gi-Oh is so expensive. But of course, it's not as simple as just Konami bad. There's actually a super easy solution that makes everyone happy, and Konami is simply evil and doing all of this on purpose just to fuck you. There are often some points that people bring up that are also unreasonable on the other side. So the first thing people will bring up is just do what the OCG does. If you're not aware, the OCG actually prints all of their cards at way lower rarities.
We need
like
super rare SP. We need
Bonfire.
common bonfire,
There's a
baby.
Not common, but you know, close enough to common version of the card, so all of your decks are actually pretty cheap. And then there's also higher rarity versions, so that people who want to chase that high rarity still are injecting higher amounts of cash into that ecosystem. That way also better supporting the stores. Now, I've been part of Cardfight Vanguard for many years, and I've qualified Worlds multiple times. I've been to Japan multiple times because of that. And if you have been in Japan, and then especially like Akihabara, you will quickly realize that the culture around card games is vastly different than in the West. And so assuming that we can just go like, oh look, it works there, it'll work here, everything will be sunshine and rainbows, isn't particularly true either. Now, I do think that there's some lessons we can learn from that and like little ideas, but a one-to-one comparison will never ever fly. If you try to do that, it's just naive.
That actually is true in the sense where the card game culture in Japan is way more vibrant and supported in Japan/Asian countries relative to the United States. Magic the Gathering gets fucking blown out of the water proportionally when it comes to the popularity of the IP relative to something like Yu-Gi-Oh or Cardfight Vanguard in Japan. That's why like every Asian country has card shops that are fucking like 5 stories tall and sell like every single TCG product imaginable. It's because it's just way more supported there due to like cultural reasons. And in America, they have to make up that fucking difference by extorting it from the player base.
As well, that way everyone will access all the cards. Again, a little naive, this would just make every shop die. In the end, shops will still have to buy cases of product from Konami, or well, first the distributor and then Konami. And then it needs to be worth it to buy a box. So if you buy a box and it's super easy to pull everything you need for like 40 bucks or 80 bucks, however much that box ends up being, then barely any product will be bought and barely any product will be opened. It will be impossible to sell cases for 600 or 700 at the distributor level, and shops would simply die. And without shops, you don't have a place to play, and if you don't have a place to play, you don't end up playing, and if you don't play, then well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dead, right? So it's not really as simple as that. Right now, Starlights are actually so far above the regular printings of cards that they by themselves aren't enough to absorb whale capital.
Okay, to be fair, Starlights are a very specific corner case that I don't think is the best comparison, mainly due to the fact that most Starlights, yes, I do know Appaloosa and IP, but most Starlights were released during the pandemic or in really bad sets that nobody wanted to buy anyways. Remember Blazing Vortex, the Prosperity set? It very much did not help that. Not only the fact that these sets were extremely hard to pull the chase card in, but the fact that these sets were just extremely hard to find in the first place.
Why we see Wanted still being so extremely high. Now, when I say this, some people will bring up the next bad argument, and that is, but it worked in Rarity Collection. I saw Rarity Collection and I loved it. Of course, everyone loved it. We got a set full of some of the best cards of all time, and you could pull them in so many rarities, and every single box was exciting to open. You had super high rarities that are still pretty expensive, and you have a variety of rarities under it, and you're like, alright, how much am I willing to spend on an imperm? And then you can just go like lowest tier or slightly higher, slightly higher, slightly higher, and so forth. It kind of looks like the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Product ever, right? And it does feel that way. But the reason it feels that way is exactly because we had all this pent-up demand. It's because Konami was so skimpy and unwilling to print anything at any higher rarities ever that we were like, holy shit, now they do it for every card ever all at once, and we get to pull all these amazing cards at these amazing rarities in this one set. Whoa! It is because we were all strangled for so long that getting to breathe a little suddenly felt amazing. But if you try to do that consistently, you would notice that all the product would just be worthless. You can already see in Rarity Collection that most cards are worth nothing. And so the EV on this set actually isn't that great beyond, you know, Ash Blossom and so forth.
Like when you look at the price of stuff from Rarity Collection, the box is still extremely expensive due to just stores having to buy like 1 trillion cases of it because there was so much player demand that Konami was just able to scalp stores, and stores are forced to sell these for such an artificially high price. But when you look at most of the cards in the set, maybe about a baker's dozen worth of cards are actually worth pulling out of the set, and just the rest are just so middling. Like, you don't want to really pull a fucking Artifact Lancia. You don't really want to pull like a QCR Dark Law. Like, on release, these cards went for like $1 bajillion because there was like so much hype and pre-sale garbage. Again, don't buy pre-sales because you will go bankrupt, that type of deal. But after all the hype died and everyone basically cracked open 1 trillion cases and supply just flooded the market, like the expected value of a Rarity Collection pack just tanked so considerably. It's just not even worth buying Rarity Collection anymore as a sealed product. You might as well just buy like your 3 QCR Imperms or your 3 QCR Ashes.
And this is the first time they've ever tried it. We see a similar story with QCRs, like the fact that QCRs are virtually the same thing as Starlights, except for slightly the name and maybe some more blue in the foil, whatever people say. And then it's basically like, you look at IP, Starlight IP is severely hurt by QCR IP, I think, at least medium to long term. And so any stores that are sitting on cards that are expensive, knowing like we can keep these in inventory because they are rare enough, they will keep their value, they might even go up a little, then suddenly have to deal with the fact that, oh, there's gonna be mid-tier rarities that are close enough that then actually hurt our current inventory. Fuck, now we need to sell this ASAP. Those kinds of fears kind of show that in some ways QCRs and rarity collection can kind of go too far as well. And so if you tried to put that system at every single level in Yu-Gi-Oh, I do think it would hurt stores. So we can't just go, oh, this worked, copy paste. I do think there's a risk there, and it would be, again, naive to just assume that we can make every single card cheap as fuck and this wouldn't hurt stores.
That is true. You can't just make product extremely cheap, because although it would be great for the player, you literally cannot keep a store afloat by selling $20 to $40 boxes, maybe like what, 100 units a week. And that's assuming there's like a new set every single week and people are actively buying boxes. Like the reason why stuff like restaurants or like fast food companies are able to stay afloat selling like 50 cents off a hamburger is because of the volume that they're able to churn out, as well as like, you know, merchandising and blah, 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 blah. Card stores literally have just boxes of product and nothing else. So those profit margins on those boxes better be pretty fucking good. You can't fund a store entirely off of fucking soul-burning volcano, you know what I mean?
Can be done, so we should do it too. You just print every staple at the lowest rarity, and then you print some super ridiculous high rarity, and then people buying the high rarity will automatically fund the people buying the low rarity. Problem solved. I really wish that was the case, but the issue is that Pokemon is largely bought up by kids and collectors, barely players. Now, of course, there are players, but their locals attendance, their tournament attendance in general is still much lower than Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, of course, I'm sure someone will say, oh, but my Pokemon locals, like, nah. In general, it's smaller. And so they can afford to kind of lose on the competitive players a little bit, or the semi-competitive players, because the box will be bought. You know, little Jimbo, 8 years old, wants his Charizard. He's gonna buy the box, even if it's a competitive stinker. You know, legendary duelists of the deep in Pokemon would still sell, because holy fuck, there's a foil Blastoise in there, boys. And that is just not how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works.
Another thing to bring up is, although he's completely right, Pokemon does not give a single fuck about the trading card game. Let's just make that abundantly clear. The trading card game for Pokemon makes so little money relative to every other fucking part of the Pokemon IP that it's just not even worth trying to extract like a it's not even worth trying to extract a couple extra pesos out of their player base, you know what I mean? Like, why would they put a bunch of department heads and marketing managers and a bunch of staff in order to create like a more lucrative Pokemon TCG environment, but they could just use those people to focus up on stuff like toys or games or merchandise or anything else that has like a 10 times higher rate of return rather than the Pokemon TCG. That's why Pokemon can afford to take such a massive relative loss on their sealed product relative to Yu-Gi-Oh! And why they're able to sell stuff for so extremely cheap.
Now, that being said, there is still a lot we can learn, and so here are some of my current ideas on how pricing could be improved for Yu-Gi-Oh! First of all, there should be less sets per year. Right now, we have so many sets. Every month has 1 or 2 new products, and a lot of them are stinkers. It's just true. There's so many
soul-burning volcano!
Why the fuck would we ever buy these? And then they are artificially juiced by putting some important card in them at 1 to 3 copies per case. And then that card ends up being ridiculously expensive because the only value to be had from the set, the only way to get your $600 distributor price out of it is by getting all of that money out of those singles. Again, Legendary Duelists of the Deep had their silly little Forbidden Droplet reprint. Maze of Millennia now has Bonfire rollback and I guess a Thrust reprint. And there's so many sets like this where you're just like, oh, why? Holy fuck. Side sets are also so awful when it comes to their printings. Look how expensive fucking Vanquish Soul was. Just because it's the only way to sell these types of sets, it is just not sustainable.
The funny thing is that there's a vendor at my locals. His name is Kevin. You may have heard me mention him on stream. We call him K-Woo. And every time we need like a card, we're like, K-Woo, we need like XYZ card. And usually he's like, all right, sure, whatever. And he'll bring the card, and we slide him a couple buckaronis off OTS premises, of course, because we're not on an OTS store or location or anything like that. But I remember when Valiant Smashers got dropped and I wanted to play Centurion, and I was like, hey, K-Woo, can you give me a Centurion core? And he just immediately messaged me back and he was like, I'm not buying a single fucking pack of Valiant Smashers. That set is so ass. And I'm like, god damn, not wrong. I guess I gotta borrow this deck. And I borrowed the deck from my friend Yuli for like 3 months and I never gave it back. pack.
There should just be less sets overall. You can very easily put this rogue support that doesn't really matter inside other sets at slightly lower rarities, and people will still have their support that way. Like, look at the for hire support at one point, or like Unchained at one point. You know, Unchained had what, 1 ultra in a set and a couple commons, and that deck was still good. People still got their support that way. It doesn't have to be a separate set that almost no one wants, but you're now forced to buy because Triple Tactics Talents 2.0 is in there. The next one is you need to have more copies of each secret in a case. It is ridiculous that you can buy an entire case of a set and not have playsets of what you need. Like, you're paying $600, $700 at a store, maybe $800 if you're in Europe. Maybe America is luckier, I don't know. You can be paying so much for these cases and still maybe pull 1 copy of a card you need. Like, that is ridiculous. Before Rise of the Duelist, this was different. Before another set, it was even better, and so forth. Like, they have just been getting skimpier and skimpier with their ratios, and so that just needs to change. Another solution is that I think generic staples should only be ultra or lower, and then of course that means in main sets where you also have secrets. We already saw that you can still get value out of staples at super, like Bestial Magnamud, Bestial Druisworm, Bestial Saronir. These cards were still money, they just weren't ridiculous amounts of money.
I mean,
now,
they
of course,
still
this was
are.
a little different because we had a tier 0 format, so everyone had to have Bestials, but there's still some kind of middle ground to be found here, to where you don't have a new $100 staple every 2 months. And then finally, I do think we need even higher rarity versions of cards to put downwards pressure on these staples. Take for example Pot of Prosperity. It was printed at Secret and then also at Starlight, but Starlight was so damn rare that I don't know how much it is now, but it wasn't really putting any downwards pressure on the Secret Pot of Prosperity because it was so impossible to pull the Starlight anyway. Not a lot of people, except for like Pack and Team Samurai, are actually wailing at the level to where they were trying to get the Starlight Pot of Prosperity.
To be fair, Pack and Team Sam are unironic millionaires. Like, Pack works for fucking like JP Morgan or like Johnson Johnson. And Team Sam, I mean, you've seen his YouTube subscriber count. He could pay off everyone in this chat's student loans like 50 times over.
However, if there was something like that, a tier below that, it would already help tremendously in ensuring that the lowest Pot of Prosperity wasn't actually that close to the Starlight. Now, of course, right now we've had enough reprints, so it's different, but you really need this at the initial release. Otherwise, you keep having this issue to where the staple comes out, it's $100, every single player now needs to buy it, you know, they have to spend $300 for this new staple. 6 months later, there's a new reprint in the tins or whatever, and then, or they do a ban list, the whole price craters. Everyone who spent money also lost a ton of money because of that, and it's just not a great experience for anyone. Whereas if you know, okay, when I buy the very highest rarity of this card and there is not gonna be another card at a higher rarity than that, you know your money is safe because you bought the highest,
it's
and
investing.
You also already partially paid for people's lower rarities. Pokemon again does this pretty well with their system. Now, I do think their competitive staples are a little too easy to get because again there's the risk that stores simply can't sell product because everyone just needs the common of whatever they need. But there's a middle ground here, and I do think there's something to be learned from the rarity collection. People do love blinging out their decks with these rarity collection cards, and beyond that, Yu-Gi-Oh also has an tapped into the fact that all of their cards are in that tiny little frame. I still think that you can print fucking full arts and make those so damn wanted, but
full art, lovely!
Downwards,
please! I need to see our armpits in 4K.
Make the game a little more affordable overall. Now, of course, that's an entirely different kind of video for another day, but think about it. That is all for today. Hope you found this very interesting. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Solemn. The greatest video on planet Earth. Please subscribe, please like, and please comment. Goated video. This was unironically probably the best, most well thought out and well structured video about Yu-Gi-Oh's pricing I have ever seen ever. Honestly, like shit, that was just a good ass video. Tell me what you are going to buy instead of 3 bonfires and let me in the comment section down below. And yeah, that'll be it for this video.